Hello, I'm Steph and I've looked after Roborovski hamsters on and off for a lot of my adult life, and I also really enjoy researching Roborovski care. I wanted to make a series of videos sharing advice from my experience on whether or not to handle a Roborovski, and if so, how to safely and confidently handle a Roborovski. In this first video, I'm going to talk about whether or not to handle a Roborovski hamster, if it's okay to be hands-off, and if it's possible to tame a Roborovski hamster. First of all, I would say that Robos are not necessarily the best hamster to adopt if you're looking to definitely tame and handle a hamster, especially if you're not so good with very fast-moving animals. Many people do have success handling Roborovskis, but they are very fast and can be shy, and can often prefer to be left alone. So don't get a Robo if handling is an absolute must. It might be that you need to be happy letting your Robo do their own thing and not ever actually handle them unless necessary. Which leads me on to my next point. It's completely fine to have a Roborovski and to not handle it if you don't feel confident handling your Roborovski, or if your Roborovski doesn't like being handled. This is in no way a failure. Some hamsters are known as ghost hamsters, which means they are rarely seen. And some hamsters are shy or nervous or would just prefer to be left alone. And likewise, if you aren't confident handling a Roborovski, they are fine to be left alone, and depending on how much they want to interact, to be interacted with without touch. There are alternative ways to pick up your Roborovski when you need to remove it from the enclosure, to clean the enclosure, or when you need to weigh it or take it to the vets or do any kind of checkup. And so there are workarounds which I will cover in another video in this mini-series. But in the wild, they would not have humans picking them up or interacting with them. They are prey animals, so they are naturally nervous and they like to be able to hide. In the wild, Roborovskis live together, but in captivity they cannot be housed together, so they won't have the social element that they have in the wild. If your Roborovski therefore wants to be social, and so do you, then great. If they don't want to be social, even after attempts to tame them, this is understandable. And if they do want to be sociable and you don't want to handle them, there are other ways you can interact. The main thing is to be aware of their natural behaviour and to respect that. Other things to keep in mind when deciding whether or not to get a Robo or to handle a Robo are the characteristics of Roborovski hamsters. They are very tiny, very fast, meaning that they can make a run for it pretty quickly, and they can also fit through very small gaps. If you're planning to handle your Robo, you will need to have a safe place that you can do this, to keep them close to a surface at all times so that they can't fall from a great height, and to be somewhere that they cannot escape to outside, meet other animals, or get lost in your home. I will go into a lot more detail about preparing to handle a Roborovski in another video in this mini-series. And finally, I wanted to say that Roborovskis can be very friendly and enjoyable to handle and interact with. They should never be grabbed or picked up when they clearly don't want to interact, only encouraged and tamed gently. And if they don't want to be handled, left to it. Likewise, if you don't want to handle them, they are still a good hamster to have. I hope this was a useful brief introduction to Roborovskis in relation to handling or not handling, and I hope the rest of the mini-series, which will go into a lot more detail, is helpful also. Thanks very much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe.